Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome.
My name is Larika, and I have Ali here today. This is my very, very first live, so bear with me if I sound a little bit nervous. I have to learn the background of this and to see what's happening on here. But anyway, um, thank you all for joining. Um, I would like to just introduce Ali from Heart and Soul Connected. In the
Thank
meantime,
you.
while we wait, hopefully we'll have some people joining.
Hmm.
And Ali is the most amazing person in our community.
Oh, you're
She
so sweet.
hosts so many of us who are tarot readers or energy workers, all
Mhm.
different themes, all to do with spirituality, and everybody seems to be welcome on her channel. There's no,
Thank you.
you do this, so I'm not going to talk to you, or you in that. It's everybody's welcome, and there's no funny business. Everybody's kind and generous, and so welcome, Ali. I'm so glad that you can join me on my channel today.
Yes, I'm thrilled to be here. And
Wonderful.
yeah, and you have to practice sometime with a live, and I'm glad I could be your first live. So
Good.
congratulations. Thank you.
Uh, so we're going to talk today about this is our first chat today, and about books. And we're going to do quite a few of these, hopefully,
Hmm.
over the course of the next few months or year. And we'll do one on my channel and one on Ali's channel, and we
Hmm.
1 month on my channel, or one, we'll see how we go, how often we do it.
Right.
It depends on how much time both of us have for reading. And the
Hmm.
book we're going to talk about today is called Witchlight
Hmm.
by Susan Fletcher. It's one of my favorite books and that I've ever read. And
Hmm.
but before we're going to get into that, I actually have a couple of questions for Ali
Okay.
about um, her reading habits. I'm going to want to ask you, Ali, um, the first question: where's your favorite place to read?
Ooh. I would like to say that it's my bed, but I tend to fall asleep sometimes, depending on how late it is. But I really do enjoy it. I love to have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. I love to have my blanket and my pillow, and either in bed or on a couch, all
Oh,
curled up. And
yes.
yeah, and I've always been that way. When I was just a little girl, even, I would
Oh,
always be curled up with all that stuff. It's like it's the required um, things that I need to have with me when I'm serious about reading.
oh, wow. That's
Uh-huh.
great. I love that. Yeah, I also enjoy reading in my bed, I must
There
say.
you go.
It's-
Mhm.
but I fall asleep a lot when I read in bed. And why do you enjoy reading? What is it?
Um, there's just, it's funny. My parents started me reading when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I couldn't read the words then, but we would read the books over and over again. We would go out every week and get a new book, a little kid's book,
Mm,
but
yes,
and
yes.
it was my excitement. It was so, I ended up with this huge library, and it just always was my time. It was my time. And then I went into the Nancy Drew mystery stories. I
Oh,
would get two or three of them for Christmas, and they would be done by, the 26th. And then I don't have any more to read. So when I get going, I just
mm,
kept on going.
yeah.
But my taste has changed over time. I definitely love to read historical information or historical novels.
Mhm.
I also love nonfiction, and I love spirituality. But
Yeah.
some of the best parts of my life, I think, have been found in books, and of course the
Mm,
wisdom contained in them. And I kind of passed that on to my kids because I would say, I'm going to the bookstore. Anybody want to go? Oh, can I get a book? So
Yeah.
it was passed on, and my children who are adults, my daughter actually reads about 100 books a year. I can't read that many. My son
Wow.
probably
Yeah.
reads 20 or so because he's a busy guy, but they love books. And that was my best legacy, I think, that my children love to read just as much as I
Oh.
did. Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
lucky.
my mum used to also always buy books. That was her gift to everybody. She would buy books. That's the thing that
Yeah,
she would give people.
yeah.
And yeah, I also learned to read really young, very, very
Did
young
you?
age. I actually learned to read when I was just after 4 years old. I
Oh,
started
wow.
proper reading books, not because they were in a hi Andrea. We were a little bit earlier than expected because I forgot about the time change in the US and we didn't have one in Sweden. So there's like, so
And you know what happened was my husband changed it yesterday.
ah.
So I'm completely lost,
Oh, no.
Anyway, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
And then one last question, Ali, before we start talking about
okay. About the book.
um, the
Okay.
book. E-books, audiobooks, or physical books?
All physical ones.
Oh, yeah.
I do have a Kindle, and
Mhm.
I do load it up because, of course, if you're traveling, it travels the best because you can bring
Yes.
100 books with you, and. But
Yes.
really, I like to write in my. I didn't in this one particularly, but I like to write in my books. I like to highlight my books. And sometimes people will ask, can they borrow them? And it's okay, but I want my book back.
Yeah,
I'm
I know.
kind of, greedy with that. And I just started collecting some of the leather bound classic books.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know they're really beautiful. And I haven't, reread them, but it's almost
Yes.
as though they're little treasures on the shelf. Yeah, I love paper
Oh,
too, Andrea.
yeah, paper, Andrea,
Paper,
paper
paper.
is the best. It's like just
It
that
is.
smell. I love going to secondhand
Mhm.
bookshops and
Yeah.
like when you walk in there, it's just this magic all
It is
around you with
magic. Yeah,
books.
the
It's
this
like,
the print
yes,
smells so good, and
yes,
it feels so good
yes,
in your hands. Yeah.
yes, yes.
I'm afraid that it's gonna die out at some point because of
Mm,
technology,
I
because
know,
people don't
but
read like
I'm
they
not
used to.
sure about that because I think
Okay.
I was worried of that too at some point, but it feels to me that there's suddenly a reinvigoration. I don't know what the word is. That
Mhm.
yes, organic friends, and there's this books. People are starting to read physical books again. It's like I
That's
just
good.
see it everywhere, even on YouTube. I don't know if we can thank YouTube for that because these Bookstagram, or
Yeah,
Instagram, Bookstagram, and like, the YouTube
it's
um,
true. Yeah,
bloggers that always talk about the books and review books. So that
yeah.
might be a reason,
It
but
might be,
there's
and
definitely a resurgence in books, physical books. So
yeah, I what made me incredibly sad was I teach reading as well to people that have not ever been given the love of reading, and that's hard for
um,
me sometimes because I don't understand how their parents wouldn't spend time, and some of them actually their parents would, but their parents it was a punishment for them to
mm,
read.
oh
So
no,
that's
yeah.
that's not a good thing.
No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
I don't
But
think you can almost ever start to enjoy books if that's how you started
right.
to read as a yeah.
No, I
I
agree.
love paper stores too, Andrea. I can
Mhm.
spend hours in them. And
Mm,
making books are fantastic, isn't it? Because you can
yes,
just,
yes.
put it all together and you should make a video of that, Andrea.
Yes.
So,
Well, with me,
it,
I also get the journals. I have
yes,
to have
yes,
my
yes.
journals to write about.
Yes.
And yes.
So
Okay.
so we this is the star of the show today,
Okay. It
Susan
is.
Fletcher, Witchlight, and this is a book that is historical fiction. Susan Fletcher, I've read quite a few of her books. She's really an awesome author. She's also written a book about Van Gogh, close
Oh,
to the
good.
end of his life when it's also fiction, when
Mhm.
he was in the um, uh, well, I don't know what the right word is for that in English. When he was in the in institution for
Yes,
his mental health.
when you went to mental health. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Mhm,
And he it was the most beautiful book. It was just so beautiful. So I can totally recommend that. So she's written quite a few books. So she's a great author. But
mhm,
this book, Witchlight, takes place in 1692. It's when it starts about that time, right
mhm,
after a real life massacre that took place in Glencoe in the Scottish Highlands.
mhm,
Um, and it follows the life of this girl or young woman called Corag. And Corag is at this moment imprisoned as a witch, and she's
mhm,
awaiting execution. Um, and what happened is, while she's in prison, this Reverend Charles Leslie from Ireland, comes to see her. Um,
mhm,
he would he wants to know more about this massacre, and of course, he's a reverend. She's a witch, so there's that dynamic happening right there. And he wants to know what happened, because during this time in the English or the British history, there was these two King William and King James,
mhm,
and one of these kings took over power. So there was still a lot of fighting as to who's going to stay in power, who's going to get the power back.
right.
So we see this is where the book starts. And Korak agrees to tell this story to Reverend Charles Leslie, if he listens to her life story, because she has nobody left and she
Mhm,
wants somebody to remember her when she dies. And so
mhm,
this is the setup of the whole of the story, basically, of the book. Um,
mhm.
I find that for me, it is really interesting how this book was written, Ali. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but and what
I
your
love the
opinion
way
is.
it's written. Yeah,
The way
yeah.
it had two parts.
Mhm,
The one part is, hi, Ange, welcome.
mhm,
It have um, first first it's two sections. It's like you have Korak, and you have it in her words, and
right.
she's sitting in prison and she's telling the story. And then the next part, the next chapter, so it's one chapter, is Charles Leslie, and he writes letters home to his wife,
Who's-
and how what he's experienced and what he's heard from Korak.
Yeah.
So how do you find that? Was
I
it
think
easy?
that's fat. I love it. It's because
Yeah.
you're getting a different two different people's voices, and
Yes.
and I love the letter writing part of it,
Yeah.
because most people, if they're writing to someone they trust and they love, they really honest, and
Yes.
so he's kind of pouring himself out to his wife, right? I
Yes,
think Jane is
exactly.
his
His
wife. Yeah,
wife, she's back
yeah,
home with the kids in
yeah,
Ireland.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it made it, I mean, it's beautifully written as far as words, because there's word painting, I call it. In other words, you're feeling like you're in that cell, or you're feeling like you're in that place. And then you also kind of get how everybody back home and how he's really feeling about what he's seeing included in here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think that it brings me to the atmosphere of the book and the sense of place, because I think
Hmm.
this book has got so much to do with place.
It does.
It's all about place, and we follow her life from a young child in England, and how she ended up in the Highlands, in the Scottish Highlands. She traveled quite far, and
Hmm.
it is just I find that this, like you say, Ali, it feels like I'm physically there, like the
Hmm.
way she sees things. I want to read something, if that's okay.
Please. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
opening, the first chapter of the book, um, because it will give you an
Yeah.
idea of how
It's beautiful.
she writes.
Yeah.
And this is from Korak's perspective. When
Hmm.
they come for me, I will think of the end of the northern ridge, for that's where I was happiest, with the skies and wind and the mountains being dark with moss, or dark with the shadow of a cloud moving across them. I will think of how it is when parts of a mountain brightens very suddenly. So it is like that rock is chosen by the sun, marked out by sunshine from all the other rocks. It will shine and then grow dark again. And I'll stand with my skirts blowing, make my way home. I will have that sunlit rock on me. I will keep it safe. It is just,
Yeah, there aren't a lot of authors anymore.
yeah,
You would,
yeah,
if you read this in, some of the classics, you would read this kind of stuff because they didn't have movies. They didn't have, places to go watch something like they do now. She
no.
really, really brings you in. She
Oh,
brings you in.
completely. Hi, butterfly kisses. Yeah, I just, and the whole book is full of these
It
descriptions.
is.
And I wouldn't call this, I don't know about you, I wouldn't call this an action book or a,
No,
a
no,
crime book. It's definitely not a genre kind of a book. It's more a literary fiction book. And I find some of the people that have done talk about the book and review the book find it a little bit slow. But to
yeah.
me, I did not find it at all like
It's
that.
because people want that action. So I've
Yes.
had people tell me other books, oh no, dragged on and on and on. Okay, but you're not a reader. You must not be a reader, because that's what reading is. It's an
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, it takes you in there.
Yes.
Totally takes you in there.
Uh-huh.
And hi, Gina.
Hi, Gina and
Very
Sue.
welcome.
Mhm.
And there is something that I know that creates a little bit of also controversy, is that the word? But for me, it just
Yeah,
worked.
yeah,
And that is the romance in the book. There's slight little bit of romance. And
yeah.
for those of you who haven't read the book, I'm not giving anything away when I say this, but her, if you can call it a love interest, it sounds so, because it
I
feels
know.
that it's deeper than that. It's like a soul connection.
Uh-huh.
But he is married, and of course she is not. And
Right.
I have read or seen people being very, very upset about that part of the book. But to me, I didn't even notice, it didn't even
Right. It wasn't of
come
an offense to
into
you.
it for me.
Yeah, yeah,
I found that it felt like it wasn't one of those kind. This is why I say romance. It's not really romance. It's just, when you meet somebody and you have a connection, and it can be
yeah.
anything.
That's
It
right.
doesn't have to be a romantic connection. I think it's much more of a love, soul level connection that these two
Mhm.
people have, because there was none of the usual love story
Right.
between them,
Right.
I think.
Uh-huh.
What do you think, Aley?
Yeah, I agree with that. And because of that, well, she sort of gets made into something that she isn't, because Coreg is not a witch, actually, right?
No,
She's got
no,
nothing to do with being a
no.
witch, but she is because she maybe has bewitched somebody, how they find these, or there's
Yes,
some kind of an action that has been done that makes it seem odd. Then people sort of throw water on the fire, so to speak, and they just, and this was the time period. Even in the United States, it was like this. If you
mm,
were an odd person, or you did something in a different way, then you were a witch and you needed to be taken care of.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
She does
yeah,
become
and she
strong with
definitely.
it. She
Mm,
does become strong. She said um, that I've tried not to mind it. I've tried not to say it doesn't hurt. It's been a gift, she says, in
yes.
some ways.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think it's like all painful things that we go through in life. This is what I learned from this book. All the things, I mean, the horrors that we have, the pain that we have, it
Yeah,
all helps us to grow.
it
It
does.
helps us just to become stronger. And you
Right.
can see it so clearly. And we can also see that even during times that things are so tough. And I think you talked about it so beautifully in your previous, when you just had that show with the gentleman. I
Yes.
can't remember his name now, but
Oh, it was Richie at Longman
Richie,
Pharaoh.
yes.
Yeah.
He,
Uh-huh.
when you said about what the virus has showed you, the
Mhm.
positive things, to learn, to let go of things and to leave them
Mhm.
behind,
Mhm.
and that you might not have experienced or discovered, and
Correct.
if it wasn't for going through these times.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We really have to go back and reflect on the what's important and what's not important, and what can be changed and what can't be changed. I think that's helped me through my situation with my house and my
Yeah.
leaky roof and all that. I can't fix it. I can't go out there and fix it, and I
Yes.
can't make it go away. And but before I would have lamented and cried and screamed and yelled and been mad, and it just, I think the virus, being locked down and staying home, it was a real gift for me. It really brings me down to the present moment. And,
Yeah.
you're a Buddhist and I'm a Buddhist, and we understand what that really means. Yeah.
Understand that, yeah. And that
Mhm.
also, I feel I don't want to have a discussion about the Ukraine thing, but I feel if it's so weird not to mention
Bring it
it,
up.
because it's
Yeah.
just, it's just
Mhm.
quite such a situation. Hi, Sharon. Um, but I can see that, because where we live,
Mhm.
so here in Europe, we are more
Oh,
exposed to it, and
you
we are
are.
getting refugees coming into Sweden quite a
Mhm.
lot. The queues at the official refugee centers, or not refugee, but where you can apply for
Mhm.
status, is just super long.
Oh, I bet.
So people can't even get in there, and it's cold, it's winter, you
It's
have to
cold
wait
out there.
outside. So
That's right.
it is
That's right.
really tough times, and I think for me it was really emotional, and I'm still don't know what to think or feel about things. You get anger and you confused and whatnot, but I think it's also a time for me to find gratitude
Yeah.
in what I
What
have,
you do have. Yeah. I
and
agree. Yeah.
my life that I have, and how blessed I am to live this life that I
Mhm.
have.
Yes.
So I think that's the only way forward, for
Yes.
me in this situation.
No, I agree with you 100%, because that's I just think to myself, we all go through really tough times, but nothing. I mean, I've not had to go through anything like these people. They have to leave their house. Their houses are bombed. There's not going to be any place to go back to, and the
Mm,
children and the elderly. It's so horrible. So yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I agree.
And it actually ties in quite well with this book, to be
In a way, it does. Yeah.
because this is a massacre at Glencoe. So this
Right.
is all about that same invasion, basically. Of It's actually quite strange now that I think about it, how
Yeah.
these two things are connected.
They are.
Hi, Janet. But it really is. This book is such, what I love about it. I'll show the
Mm.
cover again.
Yep.
Is that it is painful, and it shows this woman's life that is really traumatic, and the
Right.
experiences, but it's so beautiful and it's
Yeah.
so gentle, the
Yeah.
whole, this, it's both sad but the most optimistic, special feelings that you get when you read it. It's so uplifting.
Yes.
I This is one of the few books that I go to when I am in a sad
Really? Okay.
space. I
Yep.
pick
Yep.
this book up anywhere. I can just open it anywhere and start reading, and
And
it's like
start
the
reading it.
Bible
That's
for
wonderful.
me.
Everybody's
Yeah,
got at least one of those go-tos, I think,
yeah.
that reminds them of what they need. In this particular one, too, she reflects on the idea that she's lived many different lives, and she looks back on those lives, and
Yes.
she says, you know, some folks have one life and know no other, which is fine, and maybe it's the best way of it, but it's not what I was meant for. I was a leaf blown all over. And that brings me back to your book that we did last time on my show, and how you found different lives in your travels that you did, and
Mm,
allowed yourself to see those different lives. So it kind of comes
mm.
around here in full circle. No wonder you love this book, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we get so inspired by certain things
we
that
do.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then we, it's also that, is it serendipity, the English word, where you like read something or you're drawn to something and then
yeah.
something else that's the same appears suddenly in your life.
Absolutely.
I
I
think
think it's no mistake. It's like we are going to have to deal with that thing eventually, or
yes,
it's coming up in our lives, and that's another reason why you pivoted. And I can see why. And you knew
yeah,
that on an intuitive level too, even though
yes,
it was a book you'd read before. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I think one day if we should talk a little bit about, you mentioned earlier when we spoke about how at this time things were different, and how the it people were called witch just for being different,
right,
and it isn't really the case. It's just because they might have a different outlook, or
right.
they do something slightly different. And isn't it that we still have that today,
We
even
do.
though this was written in 1690 something?
There's
And
always a boogeyman. There's
yeah,
always a boogeyman, no matter where what time period there is.
yeah,
Somebody that we demonize, and we were even seeing that in Ukraine because we saw Ethiopian people at the border going into where was it? Poland, and they
Poland.
weren't let in.
Yes,
Weren't
yeah.
let in. We don't want that. They were African American. They had to wait, or they weren't let in.
Mm,
So they were demonized, and they're
mm.
just from the color of their skin or the actions that they take. There's a
Yes,
preconception of it. Yes, I agree
yes,
with you.
yes. Yeah, it's absolutely. Hi, MK Karen.
Hi,
Um,
everybody.
so yeah, I think so. I think, and it's it creates that feeling of an us versus them. That's that
Absolutely.
polarizing, and
Yeah.
it's such a strong um, theme in
Mhm.
today's society. I always thought that, we might at some point stop with that us
Yeah.
versus them, because
Yeah.
when I was growing up in South Africa during apartheid, it was a
Right.
definite us versus
Definitely.
them
You lived it.
situation.
Yeah. You lived that. Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
And when Nelson Mandela was freed, it was like this amazing, going through the whole through us. It was just this joy, like a absolute
Uh huh.
celebration. In
Right.
everybody was positive, and then the elections happened, and it was this beauty. Yes, it's all about the duality, and it was this
Mhm.
beautiful thing. But there's always this undercurrent of
Yeah.
things that's not completely right. And pretty soon after the elections,
Mhm.
things kind of go back to normal, because life doesn't change so suddenly.
Right.
Things don't, not when it's generations
Right.
of
It's ancestral trauma,
yeah,
ancestor
yeah,
trauma. We're seeing that. We talked about this on another show that I was on, but it's so important, and it's the fact that we keep repeating these patterns. We thought we had dealt with this, and
yes,
just like the Ukrainians, they thought they were out of that cycle, and
yes,
it gets dragged
mm,
back in, and
mm,
the othering.
yeah,
You're not me, and I don't want you here, or and the
mm,
real ridiculous part of this Ukrainian thing is the fact that he's not a Nazi; he's a Jew.
yeah, I know, it's so
Zelensky,
bizarre.
yeah,
Yeah,
and there
yeah,
is no real there is
mm,
neo-Nazism, but it's got nothing to do with the government, or there's
yeah.
a whole group of people somewhere, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
yeah,
There's also something interesting in this book, because she talks about kings,
right,
and how kings are the thing that creates the trouble in the world.
yes,
And when
absolutely,
kings and God, actually.
Uh-huh.
When she meets the chief of the clan, this is just a
Hmm.
little insert, and they're
Yeah.
having a conversation, and he asks, who is your God or something? What do you believe in? And she said, I don't believe in God. And he's like, oh, the head of
Then you must be a witch.
yeah. And then he
Yeah.
asks her, who is your king? And she's like, I have no king. And he's like, wow. But she really connected with
Yep.
this clan at Lenko. This chief really learned to respect her, and he really they got advice from her. This young
Amazing.
woman. So
Uh-huh.
she opened their eyes and changed a lot of the viewpoint from the Scottish Highlands is different from England. Those
Right.
people are more wild, and
Yes, they are.
they more like there's a line that says the Scots and witches, they belong together. It's like
Oh,
they're a little bit
okay.
like out there.
Okay.
They're not, but this is the Highlands. It's not the
Sure. Sure.
all of
Well, it
Scotland.
reminds me of the what is it? Romanians or yeah, I think it's Romanians and gypsies. They're the bad
Oh,
ones. They're the
yeah.
ones that they travel around in caravans and they're scary and they're gonna, there's always like that's what I meant by boogeyman. There's always somebody scary that you can bring up to get people to, not like them for some
Yes.
reason. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. There has to be an enemy. And this is
Yes.
what Korak's mother said.
Yep.
People need an enemy. She
People
said
need an
foe.
enemy.
People need a foe.
Right.
Everybody needs an enemy because
Mhm.
otherwise they can't seem to live. They
You're
need an
absolutely
enemy.
right. Yep.
So it's just yeah,
Yep.
Andrea, that's an interesting question. If the ascension ancestral healing will be very different in 4D.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
do. Because it's being passed from one it was, I thought really that, I grew up in a generation where there was a lot of in the 60s and early 70s where there was so much um, slandering of names but it was like everybody did it. You didn't think anything of it at that time, let's
Mm,
say. And
mm,
of course the civil rights movement, but you came to a certain point where it seemed like people were a little bit not equal, but they understood each other and they knew we had to all live together. But I don't know. I don't think that was true. I think that was hidden. I think they
mm.
were lying, some of those people. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
some
Mm.
leaders have brought it out and
Yes,
made it.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
There's another part in the book that I want to read just to
Sure.
highlight the positivity and the beauty of this book that
Okay.
combines how this author manages it is magnificent. The sadness and the joy and the
Yeah.
beauty of life. Um, so she says, still, I have a comfort. And this is now Korak, and she's waiting, she's in the cell in chains.
Right.
And she says, still, I have a comfort. It is small, but I have it. I whisper it into cupped hands. People live because of me. I mean, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do. They live because I saved them, because I listened to my soul's voice, to the song of my bones, the words of the world. I listened to my womb, to my belly, to my breasts, my instinct, the howling wolf in me. And I told them, make for Appin and go, go. And they went. I watched them running in the snow with their skirts hitched up and their children strapped on tightly. And I thought, yes, be safe, live long lives. And
Mhm.
isn't that just
It
beautiful?
is. And we never really know that we touch people. I'm glad that she recognized that
Yes.
she did touch people because we
She
all
saved,
touch people. She
yes,
did.
people
Yeah.
live because of her.
Right.
Her
Right.
small life was
Her
like,
small life. Yeah.
hi, Juno, thank you. Yeah, it's just I'm just blown away by I can read this whole book over and over.
It's
Um,
beautiful. It's beautifully written. There's
yeah.
another. It reminds me a lot, even though it's totally different, of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which I've read, and he was in a concentration camp, You know, it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
different, and it's different era, different time, different
Mm,
situation. But he tells you in that book that you can't take away my memories. You can't take
mm,
away, you can
mm.
strip me, you can shave my head, you can do this, you can do that, but I have those and you can't take those away.
Yeah,
And that's what
yeah.
helps him to live. And that's kind of what she's saying here. She
Yes.
is finding reasons to power through all these things, even though she's not in a situation that's ever going to change, probably for her.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
is, it's all about that hope that you have and the, excuse me, and that just that strength that you can have inside of your, in
Yeah.
you. The strength,
Intestinal
it's like you can
fortitude.
be in prison, exactly. And
Uh-huh.
there's people that live out in the beautiful big world and they're not free, but they because their hearts and the soul isn't free. And
That's
then,
right.
like you say, there's people in situations like that, or even imprisoned, like you mentioned, and they have the freedom inside of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
beautiful.
One of the things that I think was the most interesting to me is that they always say that only the strong survive. And we always took that to be physically strong. Got
Yes, we
nothing to do
did,
with
right?
physical. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did. We did.
Mm,
It's
mm,
internal strength. It's
yes.
fortitude. It's
Mm,
realizing that you have a choice about how you want to see this and how you want to do this. And I think that
yes.
that comes out here in the book.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I also love the character of Reverend Charles Leslie. We could talk
Uh-huh.
about Korak a lot, but he's really I at first I was a bit like, oh,
I know.
but the more I read him, the more I really appreciated
Appreciate him.
him
Yeah.
as a character, and
Uh-huh.
she just really touch him as well in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so hard to talk about the books without giving too much
Too
away.
much away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's one of the things also that I said I wanted to talk about was the
yeah.
character Gormshul. I guess that's
Oh,
how you
yes,
say her name. And she
Gomsil.
has second sight. She's a real witch.
Yes.
And tell tell us about or what you think about um, the fact that she's really a witch, and but she's not. Nobody's persecuting her, right?
Yes,
and
yes,
and Korag is in this place, and she is. So it's the same idea of you those are um, there's none as blind as those who do not see.
yes,
you know,
exactly. I think
yeah.
the thing with her is that she was she came as well to the Highlands to
Hmm.
escape
To
something,
escape,
and the
right?
same as Korak that came to the Highlands to escape.
Uh-huh.
And it's like um, so it's like if there's certain places I think as well where you can go where you can be who you are
Right,
without being
right.
persecuted or prosecuted or whatever the word is. And I
Uh-huh.
think maybe in life, we can find those places for ourselves like she did
That's right.
for a little while. She
Uh-huh.
had this place where she could be who she is,
Right.
and she called it her third life, and
Hmm.
she could be this, just be who she is,
Who
lie
she
on the
was without
grass.
having to wear a mask. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and watch a little bee. She talks about watching a bumblebee flitting from one flower to the next and watching how he goes in, and you just see his little butt sticking out and coming back
Uh-huh.
out. It's like all these beautiful things, and you like think to yourself now, how can somebody that sees the world like that be seen as bad,
Right.
as
Right.
you know, uh,
Somebody that's very mindful, that's right in the
yeah,
present moment. And yeah, I know.
and just a kind person. She's never
Right.
hurt
I'm
anybody.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. When she makes her food, she says thank you to the animal when she eats. It's like it's
Mhm.
like a for the gift. So it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah. which is probably
Yeah.
not something that other people were doing at that time
No,
period.
not at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
no, no. But you
The
would, mm,
the aspect of the book that really resonated with me was the fact that the magic is in us, says
yes,
Korag,
yes.
and we don't realize that because we're looking
No,
out there. We're looking out there, and we don't
yes,
know why we can't find what we do because we're not looking inside where the magic is. I love that.
exactly. I so agree with you. And we put so much rules on those things. There
Correct.
always has to be step one, step two, step three. This is how you do
Yeah.
it. And it's when you start doing that, like put like barriers and rules and
Right.
what is the word, rituals and all
Rituals.
those
Uh-huh.
things. They
Uh-huh.
have a place, but I don't
Right.
think that is what magic is, or what living your full life is about.
Right.
It's not about those things. It's about what's going on in you, and
That's right.
the power. You always talk as well about a lot about affirmations and
Hmm.
positive
Right.
um, thinking and positive talk, and all of that is only by your own power and
That's
your
right.
own in your soul. It's nothing to do with the outside world
Right.
or what.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I remember myself when I'd hear something new, and there was no internet at the time, and I would have to go get a book on it and read it, and right now, and I'd have to go get it, and I needed to know the answer. And sometimes, and I was always told, you already know the answer. You just have to
Mhm.
quiet yourself down. And but we are people that want answers. We want them fast, just like cures. We want everything fast. And now
Yes.
we just Google it. Now we just
Yeah,
Google
exactly. I know.
it.
We're driving in the car, and my husband asked me a question. I'm like, I don't know. Take out the phone,
Right.
ask them,
Yep.
and then I have the
Yeah.
answer. And I'm
I mean,
thinking,
it's wonderful to have that at your fingertips,
yeah,
and I use it just as much as anybody else
yeah.
does. But sometimes you just have to quiet yourself, and you just have to say,
Mm,
I remember being in Switzerland with my ex-husband, and we had to figure out which way to go. Do we go this way or that way to get to this place? And
mm,
I wasn't able to read any of the signs. They were all in
mm.
Swiss.
Yes,
Or
yes, yes.
and
German.
so I'm like, I think we need to turn right. And he would argue with me and argue with me, and he turned left. And we got
Oh,
a certain place down the road, and he wasn't getting where he wanted to go. And so he turned around. He was mad at me because I knew that we should have gone right.
your
And
instinct told
yeah,
you.
my instincts. He's, how did you
Always
know?
listen to the woman.
Yeah, yeah. How did you know you were supposed to go right? I said, it doesn't
Mm,
matter. I just
mm,
felt that was the way to go. I chalked it up to being a geography major when I when I was in high
yes,
school,
yes.
you know.
But
So
I think
yeah,
you just know. I think
you do.
sometimes we know things in an
Hmm.
instant, and then we think about it, and then we change our mind. But then we realize afterwards that that thing we know, that instinct that came initially, that was
Yep,
the right thing.
that was the right
Yeah.
thing to do. You're absolutely right.
Well, is
What
there
is it?
anything? Oh, sorry.
What? That's okay. What is it that you would you like to see a movie of this? I know it's an older book. It's not a new
Yeah.
book.
You know,
Um,
hmm.
what would you?
I
Yeah,
don't actually.
no.
I think it's so beautiful, and I think if
Uh-huh.
they make a movie out of it, it will become too
It
much
will be cut.
action, and
Yeah,
you'll lose that
sure.
inside. It's
We
like,
always like the book better than the movie anyway,
yes,
don't
but
we? Yeah.
there's certain books like, I don't know if you ever read Chocolate, or by
Oh,
it's a
yes, yes.
yes,
Uh-huh.
and they
That
made
was
a
a good one.
movie out of that book, and I
Uh-huh.
actually enjoyed. It was with Juliette Binoche and
Yes.
Johnny Depp, and I love the
It
movie.
was a
I
great movie.
absolutely adore the movie,
Yeah.
and but I love the book as well. But they're
Mhm.
quite different, the
They are
book
quite different.
and the
And
movie.
you here's
Yeah.
the deal. People get so mad because a movie doesn't follow the book. It's the
Yes.
same with my Outlander series because there's lots of books
Oh
and
yeah.
they're all about 600 pages. You can't put that into a movie. And you have to
No.
make those decisions. They're two separate things. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
enjoy, I always enjoy the book, and
Mm.
sometimes I enjoy the movie if they got the right people, to
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
in the book. the movie. But yeah, you just can't. They're not comparable. You can't
No,
compare. Yeah,
no, no.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I would love to see it, but I think no, no,
Yeah.
it would just become too much action and not enough
And yeah,
in
they're
her.
going to have they're going to jazz it up to make everybody
Yes,
want to
yes.
watch. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
The
please
other
don't make a movie.
the other one, I wonder if she had a gravestone. And I love
Mm,
that question. If she had a
yes.
gravestone, what would you say they would put on it? Like
Uh,
if they were going to write something for Korag. You know the book better than
I think if it could be, if it, there's two versions that I this is
okay.
why I'm thinking. The one is short. She was
Okay.
kind. I think that is her, you
Okay.
know, she was kind. The other one is, um, oh my God, there's so many. She saved
Okay.
lives,
She saved
like,
lives.
or she
Right.
touched the lives.
Hmm.
But I think the thing with the kindness would be for me. What would be
Understood.
for you?
Understood. There are not a lot
Mm,
of people that are truly kind by nature,
yeah.
instinctually, So
Yes.
I
Yes.
think she was kind, and certainly having to endure the things that happened in the jail and the situation she was in, and
Yeah.
what there was some fear around the way she looked because she was scrawny, and they
Tiny,
picked on
tiny.
that. Yeah, they
Yeah.
picked on that too.
They called her fairy because she was so tiny. And
Yeah,
so I was
4 foot.
wondering, like, they never say how tall. You never
Yeah.
know exactly. So I wondered if she wasn't really, really small, if she didn't grow all the
Oh,
way,
maybe,
like, because
maybe.
they always talk about how small she is. The whole book is filled with comments about
In that
how
time
small.
period, if you were like a little person, they call it today, or a
Yeah,
dwarf, they've called it in the
yeah,
past, you would be considered evil anyway because
yeah, yeah.
you don't match the way,
Everybody
what's wrong with
else.
you? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. So, yeah, I never
yes.
thought about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it could have been because they kept saying how small she was.
Yeah, there
And
was
they
a
probably
big
weren't
part.
aware of that there were people like that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So they
Yeah.
called her fairy. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, which is quite cute.
It is cute. Yeah.
But I don't think they meant it in a positive way.
No, they didn't. No, because
Yeah.
it's so much easier to, other
Yes,
her, make her other.
yes, yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. All right. Wonderful.
Yeah. And I just wonder, like, with when you write a book as a author and you write about these characters, because sometimes, like you say, there's a series and then
Yeah.
they write the series
Yep.
over and over. But
Yeah.
like when you write the book and you have these characters and they don't die at the end, or they
You
live.
wonder what happened to him. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you as an author, like, do you think, I mean, I have written books, so I'm asking maybe myself, do you think that the author keeps on remembering that character and think about
Oh, I think so.
them, or do they just leave them like?
Yeah, I really do. I think so
Mm,
because I think I as a reader remember those
yeah.
characters. And I
Yes.
remember the ones I really liked and the ones I didn't like and the ones I wanted to like.
Yes.
All of those things. What is it? Somebody said, I'm in that in between space when I finish a book where I I can't quite leave where I was in order
Yes.
to move into where I have to be. You're kind of
Yes.
in this world and it's all up here. So yeah,
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think it's magnificent how some of these writers can write
Oh, they're
and
fabulous.
create a world for you, and you'd always in that world, right? It's
Right.
like you literally step into it,
You
and
do step into it. Yeah.
you just live right there during the story. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's so
It
beautiful.
is.
Is
It is.
there is there something else that you would like to add, Ali? We've got about
Not for
10
me,
minutes.
no, I don't think so. I just
Mm,
encourage people to read it if they're interested in, and I think there is more than one theme in here. I
yes.
think there is, and there's a lot of beautiful writing. And, I'm going to tell you, as a writing teacher and as a reading teacher, um, I Harry Potter's great, and some of these other things are great, and they have their place, but there's nothing as wonderful as literature. And literature has the ability to take us it's timeless and it's universal. So even though this is the 16th century and in Scotland, we can make meaning out of it. You made meaning out of it. I did. You can. And so it's not just a piece of fiction anymore. It is literature. Not all books are literature. So
no,
it takes a special kind of book. And that's the parameters that they pretty much have. Is it timeless? Can you read it at any time? Like, could you read it in 200 years? Is it universal? Does the themes in there, are they good? Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, I agree with you. Totally.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great book. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, I give it 5 out of 5 stars.
5 out of 5.
Yeah. And just a note, if people want to get this book, it's on Amazon. But it's under 2 other names as well. For some reason, the book has different titles.
I don't understand that either. But I did find Witchlight. I did find it as Witchlight.
And then there's one called Korak, which is the title of the book, and the other title is The Highland Witch. It's all the same book. So if you want to buy, don't buy 3. It's the same.
3 of them, right? Yeah, it's the same one. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I want to talk too about what you and I had talked about, and we were thinking of doing next month on my channel. We'll be doing a Pema Chodron book.
Yes.
What is the name? I don't have it with me right this minute. Do you know what the name of it was? I did get it.
Yes. Hold on one sec.
Sure. Pema Chodron is a Buddhist. She isn't a monk, but she's like a sister, I guess.
She's a nun.
A nun, Buddhist nun. Okay. She's written a lot of books and very popular books.
Yes.
And so,
this one's called Welcoming the Unwelcome.
And I think, again, it's going to be appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. And she, all her books is like these titles. She actually makes a little joke about it as well. I watched her. She says, and another book of hers is When Things Fall Apart. She's like, I never write a book with a positive title. But all her books are positive. But it's
they are. They're very uplifting books, and you don't have to be a Buddhist to read it, because it's really it's very spiritual. It's very spiritual, and Buddhism isn't a religion anyway. So
and she's an American. An American Buddhist nun. So she takes all her ideas and stuff comes from the culture of it's a Western. It doesn't have it's so relatable. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, it is. Yeah, just like the Dalai Lama stuff. It's very relatable to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah,
well, I had a lot of fun. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Yes,
and
thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah. And Aley for joining me. I really,
thank you, dear.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
On my first live.
Yes, you did it, girl. You did it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.